Do you believe in the power of fate? Sometimes life surprises us in ways that even the best storytellers couldn't dream up. Picture this: a billionaire woman, haunted by the pain of losing her daughter over 20 years ago, crosses paths with a young waitress wearing a simple locket, and a story unfolds that will change their lives forever. Sounds like something out of a movie, doesn't it? But wait until you hear what really happened. Stick around until the end, because this story will touch your heart and make you reflect on what truly matters in life. Elizabeth Harrington was a woman who seemed to have it all: wealth, influence, and a name that opened doors most people could only dream of. But behind the glimmering facade lay a wound so deep that no amount of riches could mend it. 20 years ago, her daughter, Lily, vanished without a trace, leaving Elizabeth to carry the unbearable weight of uncertainty. It's funny how life works sometimes. You can have everything and still feel like you're holding nothing. Her return to Washington, D.C. wasn't just about business or politics, it was about hope. Hope that maybe, just maybe, life had one more twist in store for her. Her polished exterior was a mask she wore well, but grief has a way of sneaking through the cracks when no one's looking. Every gala she attended, every speech she gave, it all felt hollow without Lily by her side. Yet, Elizabeth wasn't one to wallow in despair. She poured her energy into the search, hiring private investigators and chasing leads across continents. It's like chasing shadows, always close enough to feel real, but never solid enough to grasp. And yet, she kept going because what else could a mother do? Giving up wasn't an option. Sometimes life teaches us that pain doesn't fade. We just learn to carry it differently. Elizabeth had mastered this art over 2 decades, but even she couldn't ignore the gnawing emptiness inside her. Returning to D.C., a place filled with memories both sweet and bitter, felt like opening an old wound. But wounds don't heal if they're hidden away. They need air, light, and time. Little did she know that this trip would bring all three in ways she never imagined. It was one of those moments you'd never expect, like stumbling upon a rare flower in the middle of a concrete jungle. Elizabeth had stopped at a small diner, Sunnyside Eats, more out of fatigue than hunger. The place was unassuming, with chipped tables and the faint smell of burnt coffee lingering in the air. But as she sat there, lost in her thoughts, her eyes locked onto a young waitress bustling between tables. There was something about her, a familiarity that tugged at Elizabeth's heartstrings. It wasn't just the girl's striking eyes. It was the delicate pendant around her neck, glinting under the dim lights. The locket was unmistakable. Elizabeth had given it to Lily on her 4th birthday, a tiny treasure meant to hold a photo of them together. Her pulse quickened as memories flooded back, but she forced herself to stay composed. When the waitress approached her table, Elizabeth couldn't help but ask about the locket. The girl, who introduced herself as Anna, shared that it was her most prized possession, a gift from her biological mother, whom she never knew. As Anna spoke, Elizabeth felt a lump form in her throat. Could this really be her Lily? Life has a way of hiding miracles in plain sight. Fate often whispers before it shouts, and this was no different. Elizabeth's mind raced as she pieced together Anna's story, growing up in foster care with no memory of her parents. It all lined up too perfectly to be coincidence. But how do you tell someone they're the missing piece of your soul without scaring them away? Elizabeth decided to tread carefully, knowing that this moment could change both their lives forever. Sometimes life hands you a puzzle piece when you least expect it, and suddenly everything starts to make sense. Elizabeth had always imagined this moment, but nothing could have prepared her for the reality of it. With trembling hands, she reached into her purse and pulled out an old photograph, one she had carried with her for years. It was a picture of Lily as a child, her bright eyes and mischievous smile frozen in time. "This was my daughter," Elizabeth said softly, sliding the photo across the table to Anna. The young woman stared at the image, her face a mixture of confusion and disbelief. That's me," Anna whispered, her voice barely audible. And just like that, the walls around both their hearts began to crumble. Anna's world tilted on its axis as Elizabeth explained everything: the kidnapping, the endless search, the sleepless nights spent wondering if Lily was safe or even alive. It wasn't abandonment. It was a cruel twist of fate that had torn them apart. Tears streamed down Anna's face as she listened, her emotions swinging between anger, sadness, and a glimmer of hope. "Why didn't you find me sooner?" she finally asked, her voice breaking. Elizabeth's response was simple, yet profound. "Because I never stopped looking. Sometimes love isn't about finding someone. It's about never giving up on them." The two women sat in silence for what felt like an eternity before Anna finally reached out and took Elizabeth's hand. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was a start. Life has a funny way of throwing us curveballs when we least expect them, but it also gives us the strength to catch them if we're willing to try. In that diner, surrounded by the hum of conversations and clinking dishes, mother and daughter began to rebuild what had been stolen from them so many years ago. And though the road ahead would be long and winding, they were ready to walk it together. Elizabeth wasted no time inviting Anna into her world, a world of sprawling mansions, glittering chandeliers, and staff who anticipated her every need. But for Anna, stepping into this life felt like walking into a foreign country where she didn't speak the language. The opulence was overwhelming, the silence in the halls deafening. She had spent years scraping by, working double shifts and counting every penny. Now, she was being handed a life most people only dream of. "I don't belong here," Anna muttered one evening, sitting stiffly on a velvet couch. Elizabeth, seated beside her, smiled gently. "You belong wherever you're loved. Change is rarely easy, even when it's for the better." Anna struggled to let go of her independence, feeling as though accepting help somehow diminished her strength. She found herself missing the chaos of the diner, the clang of plates, the friendly banter with customers. But Elizabeth was patient. She didn't push or demand. Instead, she offered small gestures of kindness: a cup of tea during a late-night chat, a shared laugh over an old family photo. "This isn't about money," Elizabeth reminded her one day. "It's about family. And family means showing up for each other, no matter what." Slowly but surely, Anna began to soften. She allowed herself to enjoy the simple pleasures she had once denied: sleeping in a warm bed without worrying about rent, eating meals that weren't hastily thrown together. But more importantly, she started to trust Elizabeth. The walls she had built around her heart began to crack as she realized that love doesn't come with strings attached. It simply is. And while adjusting to this new life was far from easy, Anna started to see it for what it truly was. Not an escape from her past, but a chance to rewrite her future. As the weeks passed, something remarkable began to happen. The tension that had once filled the air between Elizabeth and Anna started to dissolve, replaced by a quiet understanding. They spent hours together, sharing stories and piecing together the years they had lost. Elizabeth would recount tales of Lily's childhood, her love for climbing trees, her obsession with fairy tales, while Anna shared her own struggles of growing up in foster care. These moments weren't just about reminiscing. They were about building a bridge between two lives that had run parallel for far too long. Healing, it seemed, wasn't an event, but a process. Elizabeth's love was a balm for wounds Anna didn't even know she had. For so many years, she had carried the weight of feeling unwanted, like a puzzle piece that didn't fit anywhere. But Elizabeth's unwavering affection began to chip away at those insecurities. "You are never unwanted," Elizabeth said one evening as they sat by the fire. "You were stolen from me, but you are always loved. Those words hit Anna like a tidal wave, washing over years of doubt and self-blame. Sometimes all it takes is one person to remind you of your worth. Their bond grew stronger with each passing day, not because everything was perfect, but because they chose to face their imperfections together. They laughed over burnt pancakes in the kitchen and cried over old photographs in the study. Life wasn't suddenly easy or free from challenges, but it was fuller, richer, and more meaningful. Together, they began to dream of a future filled with hope and love, a future where their past no longer defined them, but inspired them to move forward. And in those quiet moments of connection, they found something they both thought they had lost forever: home. Life has a way of throwing us into storms we never saw coming, doesn't it? Elizabeth and Anna's story is a powerful reminder that even in the darkest moments, hope has a way of finding us. It teaches us that love, true, unconditional love, can bridge even the widest gaps of time and pain. How often do we let our past define us? How often do we carry wounds that we're too afraid to face? Their journey reminds us that healing isn't about erasing the scars. It's about learning to wear them with pride, as proof of survival. Think about your own life for a moment. Is there someone you've lost touch with, or a part of yourself you've buried because it feels too painful to confront? What if today was the day you decided to reach out, to forgive, or to start over? Life is fleeting, and the moments we spend disconnected from others or from ourselves are moments we can never get back. So why not take a chance? Why not let love, in all its messy and imperfect forms, guide you toward something greater? If this story moved you, if it made you reflect on your own journey, I encourage you to stick around. Subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so you don't miss more stories like this, stories that inspire, challenge, and remind us of what truly matters. And before you go, ask yourself, what's one step you can take today to bring more love and connection into your life? The answer might just change everything.